Okay. Okay, so here we are on github.com, and you can see that we've got 2 files. Okay, we can see that the last thing that changed this repository was 7 minutes ago, and it was done by me. And this was the message that I wrote. So there's like this snapshot of like how recent this project has been working on at a glance. And then you can also look file by file and see that it was 7 minutes ago that we added these 2 files, whereas it was 19 minutes ago that that first commit happened. So this is one nice way that you can see the versioning, you know, see things happening through time. You can also look at this commit place right here. And if you click there, it will show you the kind of the history. This is the history of the whole project. So this is this commit I just made with written in human language here, also with like a numeric identifier here. And then when we first created the repository, it was this initial commit. So this isn't that exciting right now, but we're going to go back to R and do some more stuff and make this more exciting so that we can poke around a little bit more. Okay, so let's come back to our studio. I'm going to close this commit window that was still open. And okay, so I had us open this README file. This is a .md file, which is a markdown file. So this is markdown language like we were working on earlier. It won't execute R the way R markdown will, but this is like the precursor to R markdown, was just markdown files that don't have anything to do with coding. So let's add some more text here. I'm going to say, hello, this is a test. And then I might even say the awesome global fellows up here. And I can even add a little bit of markdown. What do you think 3 asterisks would do?
Was that something?
Yeah, it's both. It's italics and bold. Yeah, so you can build things out. Yeah, cool. So if we wanted to preview that, we could press preview here. But I think what I'm going to do right now is, so something our studio does is when something's not saved, it's red and it's italic and it's asterisked. And that's important because we changed this file, right? So okay, so yeah, we've changed this file, but it's not saved yet. So as soon as I save it, it's going to pop up over here in our Git tab. So go ahead and save. And if you've made edits to your markdown, it's going to pop up in your Git tab.
Sorry, what was it asking?
So your file right now is red. It's not saved. If you save it, it's going to turn black, and then it will show up over here. Yeah. So go ahead and save. And this is super powerful. So this, remember last time it had a green A for being, it was a new file that was added. This is a blue M for being modified. And let's have a look at it the way we did a minute ago. So we could either click this commit window where we had previously, or we could look at this diff window. It takes you actually to the same window. But we can actually look at the differences in our file line by line. So this is saying this README file that I was already tracking has been modified. And how has it been modified? Well, this red line 2 has been deleted and replaced with this new line 2. And then there's also 2 new lines, including hello, this is a test. So this is showing line by line with color, like you'd expect, like red being deleted, green being added. it's tracking what's happened here. So let's say I'm like, okay, that's fine, but I'm not done. So I want to say,
sorry, to see that if you go to the commit again?
yeah, so you could go to the commit or the diff button. They actually take you to the same place, because what this window does is it shows you the differences down here of whatever file is highlighted. And then if you wanted to stage it and commit it, you would follow that process. So we're going to do that in 1 second, but yeah, let's do that now. Let's say, no, let's wait. Let's wait for a second. Okay, so let's save it. Sorry. Let's commit it. Okay, so I'm going to come back over to this commit window. I'm going to check it and then write a commit message. So updating README. And it can be, there's always a question of how explicit should you be in your commit messages? And the answer is, it totally depends. You want it to be short but useful. So, and some, yeah. So in this case, this is plenty useful for me right now. I don't need to say like, oh, I added an adjective and whatever, but maybe in some cases that would be really important. Like if Aaron and I are working on website stuff, like maybe that would be super important to have like a word that you could search for. Okay, so I'm going to commit this, and then let's go ahead and sync it. So I'm going to pull it and then push it, even though I know no one's, well, actually I don't know, because Aaron's could be working on this thing right now. But anyway, we won't get into that. Okay. Okay, cool. And then I'm going to push it. Okay, and then if we go back to github.com, I'm going to go back to that main code page, either by, I can do it in many different ways. I could click up here on my Global Fellows test URL, or I could click on the code. So I'm just going to go back to the code. So you can see that, again, I'm the most recent person to have updated the README 42 seconds ago. And this is like where github.com's interface for looking at changes through time is super powerful. And there's a bunch of different ways to get to the same place. So I'll show you in a few different ways. Let's say you can notice that this commit record has jumped to 3 because we've got 3 commits here. So I can look here at the history, and now there's this new one that's updating README. So there's these buttons over here that we haven't looked at before, but what this does, this one, if you click on the unique identifier, it will show you all the changes that you did in this previous commit. So what's cool is that sometimes it, depending on what's going on, it might show even more detail than our studio displayed, because GitHub is showing, sometimes they'll show like, yeah, I don't know, there's pluses and minuses and stuff, but it's still this like red and green. Something else that's cool, oh yeah, and it will give you kind of an overview of like, in this commit, there was 1 file changed and there were 5 additions and 1 deletion. Another way you could have gotten there is if we were back, if we were back at this updating the README in the commit list. So let me go back there just so we're all in the same place. Let's say if we started off here again, go back to the commits. I could also click here, which would be to see the entire repository at that moment in time when that commit was made. So this, for our purposes, is the same as the present situation of these files, because this most recent commit is the present. But you can see that this URL has changed up here. There's now this like really long unique identifier that is associated with this commit. So if you ever needed to, like, if you spent, I don't know, if you decided that all the analysis you had done since last Tuesday was wrong, you could go back to your entire workspace before that Tuesday by clicking on that button.
I think like mine it's not synchronizing. I added this.
Well, so okay, this come back here. This has not been committed or pushed yet.
But I did push it.
So try pushing it. It actually, okay, never mind. I cancel it. But sorry. If you haven't written a commit message, it won't actually tell you haven't. It should say, hi, you haven't written a commit message, so I'm not going to do what you're going to do. But what it does is it doesn't do anything. You have to write a commit message.
These commits that show up here are ones that have been pushed.
Mm-hmm. 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 Have you made more commits locally? Okay.
It's just that's different than the number of commits that.
Yeah. So you've done 2 commits and 2 pushes from our studio, but creating the repository was a commit also. So that's why there's 3.
How I know it was synchronized?
Okay, so press commit. So it's always commit, close, and then it's pull, push. So that's always the workflow is, yeah. I often like pull, commit, pull, push. That's why it's like either 4 or 5. I'm kind of, I overly pull, but it doesn't cost you anything and it can save problems. Okay, so let's go back to our studio and let's create a new R Markdown file like we did this morning. So you can do this if you don't call it test.rmd. Okay. Yeah. So I need to.
Like you always generate your files in R and then link it to GitHub.
Yes, that's the way I do it. So the way that's been easiest for me to do is if you create a repository on github.com, once you bring it to your local computer, then yeah, you add to it with all your R stuff and all your files.
So what the only thing you do in GitHub is just like generate the space.
Yes.
But then all your working.
Yes.
In R.
Yes. Yes. It's also possible to create that space in R and push it up there. I find that more difficult, so that's why we do it this way. Yeah. 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 No, that's a really good way to think about it.
But like, because I was thinking like, I'm never gonna modify things through GitHub. I'll always do it through R.
Yes. Yes.
That's why I'm always like,
yeah. Yeah. It is possible to edit in github.com. And there's reasons sometimes you do that if you saw a typo or something and want to just do something quickly, but it also opens the door for you to, what if Erin was doing the same thing? What if she saw the same typo? And then like you can overwrite each other's work that way. So that makes it a little more dangerous, but I think as the best practice is to work in R and then push it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So if we create a new R Markdown and save it in our workspace, then as soon as we save it, it's again going to pop up in GitHub as double question marks, because GitHub's saying, I'm watching this space and something's happened. Do you want me to track it, essentially?
And I have another question. Because you said like when it's red, it's not saved.
Yes.
But it's not saved in R, but it's saved in GitHub.
No. So let's see.
Or you have to save it first in R in order to be able to.
Yeah. So if you look, don't do anything here. Go to github.com and click here on the code. And then this is what it says on GitHub. And now look in R. It's different because you haven't saved it. So whatever you pushed, yeah. So yeah.
Oh.
First save,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. So you still, it's like, if you were just working without GitHub, you would need to save for you to expect your work to be saved. So that part is different.
save.
Yeah, and then save. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and then you see that there's those. Yep. Cool. So I'm going to, let's do sort of a two-step, we're going to do 2 commits before we push. So just to show you that we can do that. So the first thing we're going to do is we've just created this RMD. If we click here, it's going to know that it was added. And so I'm going to create my commit message is going to say add template RMD, or, you know, we haven't changed anything from it. So I'm going to commit this and see that everything worked well. I'm going to close this, and instead of pushing, I'm going to keep working because maybe I'm on an airplane and don't have internet, or maybe also I in order to track changes in this document, because I do want to change it, I need to set up that initial commit so that it knows that this thing exists. So now let's say I want to just, I could delete everything that's there and say, hello, this is my document. Let's say I wanted to do that for some reason, or yeah, you can do any change you want. And now I'm also going to commit this change. I guess that wasn't a very exciting change. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Control-Z a couple times and bring it all back. Yeah, or you know what? There's so many different ways to do this. No, we'll do this way. Let's say that this is my thing. Let's say I want to do let's say I don't want this echo equals false here. Let's make that be my change. Okay, so I'm going to delete my echoes equals false as a change here. So what's going on here? If you remember, I checked this box to stage it, and then I actually made more edits to my file and saved it again. So GitHub is saying, instead of this remaining as a checked box, it's saying you staged this, but then you changed something. So you need to account for that. You need to either explicitly say again and check that yes, follow these changes, or you need to think about something different.
Before you checked it and it had like filled with blue, is it no longer staged anymore? Yeah. It was staged but out of date, and so GitHub won't let me continue. Okay, so now if I commit this, maybe in this case, my commit message would be remove echo equals false. And I'm going to commit this as well. When you're making, I guess in practice, do you usually work on one file at a time and commit that because the messages then apply to that single file, or you don't really, or you'll work on multiple files and then you have to commit a lot of things? It depends. So I often commit multiple files to a single commit message, but I make sure they're all relevant. Okay. So maybe if I need to update, let's say I'm updating a website, maybe I need to update the blog page and a date somewhere else. Let's say there's 3 different files. Like that's all part of like
add this feature to the website. Okay. And similarly, if you're running an analysis, sometimes you would save CSVs or images as PNGs or something like that. That's all part of like my analysis run. So like you can imagine that would be all part of one commit. Okay. But then, yeah, you can also imagine though, there's times you're working on multiple things and you're like, actually, I don't want them to all be part of a single commit. I want to make them a couple, and you can select, you can select some of them by checking them. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep.
Inside your repository, you can have folders or subrepositories.
Yep, you can have folders within this repository, just like yeah. So let's do that now. Actually, let's make a new folder. Let's click here, new folder name, new folder. No, let's say, I don't know. Yeah, inside the GitHub folder, I'm going to create a folder called R. And I'm going to put an a little R script in there, even though we haven't talked about R scripts yet. So this is something about GitHub though. So even though this is a new thing in our GitHub repository, GitHub can't track an empty folder. GitHub works on files. So I need to save something into that folder. So let me maybe make an R script. And when I save this test.r in my R folder, now that there's something in it, GitHub can track it.
So if you had committed before pulled and pushed before putting a file in it, it wouldn't show up online.
No. In fact, it didn't even show up in this little box. Yeah. 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 So it says, okay, there's something going on here. What is it? You click on it and it says, oh, there's a new file called test.r within this R folder. But you can see it doesn't treat the R folder alone.
How come the status was yellow?
So it's every time we've added a new file, it starts off as yellow because GitHub is saying, I'm tracking everything in this folder, but I haven't seen this yellow thing yet. What do you want me to do with it? Mm-hmm. And once you say, I want you to consider it, it's like, oh, right, it's new, it was added. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's the way I think about it. I'm sure there's a different, more technical explanation.
That's a good
explanation. You have to create the folder inside your repository in R. Yeah,
right. If you want a new folder in your repository, yeah. You can also, something that's really important though to know is that, I'm in my Finder, let's see, where are my Global Fellows tests? I can also treat this, we're interfacing with these files through our studio right now, but I could also do it here in the Finder. So if, let's say I want to copy this thing, oh look, it just popped up in GitHub too. Like this, the idea that GitHub is watching this file is not only through our studio, right? It's like the way Dropbox, like you can work in Word, and if it's in your Dropbox folder, it will track it. Or you can work in Excel or whatever. It's not unique to our studio itself. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. And if I delete this, it will go away from here as well.
You're not working in Mazu, are you?
No. Okay, so let's sort of wrap up this conversation because I want you guys to just play with this stuff more. But let's finish by committing this new R script or whatever we put in our folder here. So create R folder and script, beginnings of a script. I'm gonna press commit and then close. And now you can see if this screen will let us see, we're ahead. We've got 3 commits on our local computer that are not online yet. And we can, now I'm ready to sync them online. So let's say pull, just to be compulsive about it. And then push. And so it's 144 right now when I push. But when you go to github.com, if I refresh my commit history, you can see that all 3 of those commits have their own unique times. So this past one I committed a minute ago, but it was 6 and 9 minutes. So you can see it's tracking, the information is linked to the commits that you delineated, not to when you upload them. Okay, so I'm going to stop recording now. I think that's the end of kind of this GitHub session.